Today is July 1st, 2020. Can you tell me your full name?
My name is Richard Jakubczak.
And when were you born? Full birthday.
I was born May 20th, 1946.
And where were you born?
I was born in St. Mary's Hospital, Grand Rapids, Michigan.
And did you grow up in Grand Rapids area, or did you move away from there as a child?
I wasn't in Grand Rapids. I was out on the outskirts of Grand Rapids, like Lowell, Michigan, Ada, Michigan. My early childhood was in Wyoming, Michigan.
Okay.
But I've been mostly in Michigan.
Okay. Where did you attend high school?
I attended high school in Lowell.
And then what year did you graduate high school?
I graduated in 1966.
Okay, so when you were in high school, what type of knowledge or information did you have in school about Vietnam or about communism? Is that something
None.
that you really thought about much?
There wasn't, no, they didn't talk about the war, any part of the war, back when I was in high school. In fact, I didn't realize that there was a war going on until after I joined the service.
So that was pretty insulated then.
I was playing sports. I was kind of like, I was into sports, I wasn't into news.
What sports did you play?
Baseball,
Baseball.
football, track,
All the sports.
all the sports.
Okay, so you get out of high school in 1966. You don't really have any clue what's going on in Vietnam.
Nope.
And what drove you to join the military?
Well, first of all, we come from a military family. My father was in World War II. I had 5 uncles that were in Korea, and I had a grandfather that was in World War I. But I know we were a military family, but we had some family issues at that time, and I was leaving to go join the Marines. And my older brother stopped me. He said, "Don't do that. I want to join the Navy. Let's just join the Navy together." So I said, okay, he's my older brother, I just go with him. And so we joined the Navy. And it was interesting. They give you a list of jobs you want to try to do. And so we were the first day, and we were in boot camp, we were trying all different jobs. And I just passed a test to look for military equipment under camouflage. And I thought, this is going to be great. I'm going to have fun. And I ran into my brother again. And he said, "Put corpsman down." I said, "What's corpsman?" He said, "Just put corpsman down. Yeah, it'll be good." I said, "I've already filled my list out." I said, "Just scratch one off on the bottom and put corpsman down." Well, we went in '66, and they were drafting corpsmen to go to Vietnam. And so as soon as, we didn't know this at the time, but through boot camp, at the end of boot camp, we got our orders, where you're going to go, which school you're going to go to learn things. And of course, my brother and I got corpsman school, and which was at Great Lakes Naval Hospital in Illinois. And as soon as they gave us the orders, they told us, "You're going to Vietnam." And I looked over at my brother and I said, "What's Vietnam?" I had no idea. They never told us anything about it, and I never paid any attention to the news whatsoever. Well, I found out later what Vietnam was. We went to Corps school together, and then we were stationed at Great Lakes Naval Hospital. And that kind of gave me a hint what the war was like, because Great Lakes Naval Hospital at that particular time in '67 that's where they were bringing a major part of the wounded. It was a major hospital for the wounded. And as luck would have it, I didn't get a ward where the enlisted went. I got the easy ward. I got SOQ, which was Sick Officers Quarters. And that's where I got my training. I trained how to make a bed. I knew how to take sutures out, and how to give shots, and how to draw blood, and things like what a nurse would normally do in a civilian hospital. Because when they do train you, they expect you to be working in a hospital.
Did they give you any training on how to do these procedures in the field?
No. While we were at Great Lakes, they gave us, we got orders to go to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. And basically what Camp Lejeune did was to teach corpsmen how to react in the field with the Marines. And that's actually where I got most of my first aid training.
Okay.
We had a 3-day play war scenario, and I can remember that they had all these collages where people were all injured, and we were working on it. Me and another guy was working on a supposedly injured person, and the instructor came up to us and he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "We're working on him. He's seriously injured. We're trying to get him up enough to where we could get him medevac." He said, "Look at his wounds. He's not going to make it. You could spend all your time on him, and all the ones that you need to get back to the firing line are suffering. So leave him be." And that was a hard lesson. You had to leave the most serious wounded alone to treat the less serious wounded so they could get back on the firing line, and then go back if they were still alive and work on the most serious wounded. And that was a hard lesson. And it was even harder when you got to Vietnam. But after Camp Lejeune, we went back to Great Lakes Naval Hospital. And we were there for about 6 months, just doing what you do on a normal hospital day. And both my brother and I got a call to go down to personnel. And so we both went. I said, "What did we do wrong?" He said, "I'm not sure, but we were both together anyway." And so we walked in there. I said, "Well," and they told us, "One of you have orders to go to Vietnam, and we're not sure which one you want." His serial number for the Navy was B510023. 22, I'm sorry. Mine was 23. So his was before mine. And we asked him, he said, "Well, what's going to happen when one goes to Vietnam?" Well, he said, as soon as the one goes to Vietnam, when he's coming back, the other one will go. And we didn't like that because if I was going to be the one to stay in the States and wonder about what my brother was doing, and my brother was thinking the same thing, and so we told personnel that's unacceptable.
Did they do that because you were siblings?
They did that. No, they did that because of serial numbers were so close. That's the reason why they did that.
Okay.
And we were siblings, and so they were trying to accommodate a family. But we told them it was unacceptable that one had to wait, and then the other one who went would know what the other one was going to go through, and that wasn't going to sit well with us either. So he said, "Okay." My brother got orders to go to Vietnam because his serial number ended in 22. I volunteered to go to Vietnam because mine was 23. But I must tell you that most of the corpsmen that I know, there was a year's waiting list to go to Vietnam. They were all volunteers. They weren't really, you got the orders to finally go, but you were volunteering no matter what.
Do you think that has something to do with just the mindset of being a corpsman, that, you've trained to help people and that you want to go help people? Is that?
I think that's when you're trained to be a corpsman in the field, that's your job. And so we didn't want to hold back. We want to go. Mm-hmm. Because if I can help just one Marine survive a battle, it'd be worth it. Mm-hmm. No matter what happened to me, it would be worth it. And so that's how we ended up going to Vietnam. He ended up in Vietnam 4 days before I did. He got there January 30th, 1968.
Oh my gosh, what a day to
Yes.
arrive in Vietnam.
Yep.
And what was his initial, where did he even go into Vietnam on the 30th? Would
He ended up he was in Khe Sanh most everybody, the airport near Da Nang, that's where everybody, pretty much where we were, they were flown in there. He was actually stationed in Khe Sanh for his first 6 months.
In 68.
Yes.
So in 68, he arrived during the Tet Offensive and
Yes.
served in Khe Sanh.
Mm-hmm. I arrived February 4th.
Oh, wow. So you just missed Tet. And so
We didn't miss Tet. Tet lasted for weeks.
It lasted the whole month, but you missed the kickoff.
Oh, the kickoff, yes.
So what were your, okay, so let me get you into Vietnam. So February 4th, 1968, you're in Vietnam, you arrived through Da Nang. Mm-hmm. And do you arrive with Marines or with the Navy? Are you connected with both?
Because by that time, I was already wearing the green uniform.
Okay.
They gave us the green uniform in Okinawa. We stopped in Okinawa from California. We stopped in Okinawa for 2 days, and they gave us our uniforms and that. And then we flew from Okinawa to Vietnam.
So when you arrived, did you know already about the Tet Offensive? Had they said, there's this major offensive going on right now?
I just know it's going to Vietnam.
You just know you're going to Vietnam. All right. So when you get into Vietnam in February, what's your initial impression of the country?
The first thing they did was when we landed in Da Nang, we were already sweating in the plane. And then when he came to where we were going to disembark, the pilot said, "We are now going to turn the air conditioning off." And we were already sweating. 4 guys passed out from the heat as soon as they stopped the air conditioning. It was hot. I felt like I just stuck my whole body in the oven at a 300-degree temperature. So, I mean, it was really, it was extremely hot. And there's another thing that it was a smell. Kind of a musty jungle smell.
Okay.
And we didn't land in the jungle, but it was just prevalent. And I think had a lot to do with humidity, because the humidity was like almost 80%. So they brought us into this building and said, when we have orders for you to go wherever you're going to go, we'll call your name. And I'm waiting there, and I'm with 3 or 4 Marines, and we're just joking around and just waiting to get our names called. And they heard over the intercom that they were looking for volunteers to go to recon Corpsman. And I'm going to go. So I get up, and I'm going to start to go, and the 4 Marines I was with, they looked at me, and they said, "Sit down. You don't want to go there. Sit down." And so I sat back down, and if they wouldn't have stopped me, I would have gone. It would have been, "Hey, you need Corpsman, and here I am." But I got stationed with 1st Shore Party. 1st Shore Party is a logistics battalion. And our when Marines went out on operations, they don't have time for logistics. And what Shore Party did is they would send a small party with whatever operation that was going on in the area, and they would coordinate with all the companies what they needed, and then they would coordinate it with the supply in the back and make sure that everybody got whatever they needed. Their jobs were to fight. Their jobs were not to worry about am I going to run out of ammunition or not. And so I ended up at Shore Party, and my first assignment was I was on a mine sweep team. The mine sweep team is you sweep a road. They have mine detectors, and that's what you do. You sweep the road before anybody gets on it, and so you know it's safe. But Marine Corps does not have the greatest material on hand. It's hand-me-downs from the Army. And it would detect metal, but it wouldn't detect wood or plastic. And on one occasion, on my first week in Nam, we had just swept the road, and there was a large explosion. And well, it turned out to be a command detonated. Somebody actually waited for a truck and then set it off. So it was a command detonated mine. And I remember one guy was still standing and the other guy was slumped over. And I reached over to grab him so I could see him. And he was decapitated from his lower jaw to his lower ear. The rest of his head was gone. And so then I knew what Vietnam was.
And that was your first week?
I wasn't playing anymore. It was scary.
Yeah.
Yes. That was actually my 4th day in. So I left him, went to the other guy, and put a couple battle dressings on him, and we drove him to the closest field hospital, and that was a daily duty.
So as a corpsman, if there was no field hospital, like you're in a battle and there's no field hospital, what would you do?
radio men would call in a chopper for medevac.
Okay.
And I can recall one time where we were on an operation, and we were in the middle, elephant grass everywhere. And elephant grass is very tall, and which actually helped us out. I had 2 guys that were wounded and needed to get out. But every time a medevac chopper came in, mortars came in, and they couldn't come down. And then someone came up with the idea, well, what about if a gunship came down? And we did it really fast. And so they thought about it, and what they did was they popped 3 different colors of smoke, so that the Vietnamese wouldn't have known what was going on. And we were located. We took the wounded guys to one, and as soon as the gunship came in, we actually threw them onto the chopper, because he came down and we physically threw them on, and then they were gone. And we went back to our own duties. Unfortunately, with my job, though, is we've seen more blood and guts than the actual men that are fighting. That's the nature of the job.
Yeah. So where did you spend most of your time in Vietnam? Were you always in the Da Nang area, or did you get sent to different parts of the country?
No, it was in I Corps. Vietnam was it was all the way to 5 Corps, and we were in the upper north, and that was I Corps. But I spent a lot of time north and west and south of Da Nang.
Okay.
That's where most of my operations were on. I was on 10 named operations, quite a few sweeps, which was just a company trying to pick a fight. And I was also on a couple operations that didn't have a no name.
So in those operations, did you feel that most of the contact you made with the Vietnamese was it NVA, was it VC, was it a mix?
It was both. But in 1968, VC started dwindling, and more NVA started coming in. And we were actually doing more fighting, well, actually with both. Because there were sapper battalions that were made up of mostly of VC. And not that there wasn't sapper units for the NVA, but where we were, it seems like they were more VC than they were NVA. And it was just, I would go on an operation, and my downtime would be the mine sweep. And so we went, that's what I did when I was there. I spent very little time in my battalion area. I was either on an operation or I was in a different location working with the Marines, that first short party Marines that were sweeping the road.
So often people in memoirs of the Vietnam War mention long bursts of boredom and then fights and this terror.
Is.
So did you feel that you had all of that boredom, because it seems like you were always doing something in your role as a corpsman?
Corpsmen are busier than most, because when we settled in, and there was, without a doubt, long stretches where nothing happened, but when there's nothing happening, you're checking in on all the guys to see how they're doing, making sure they weren't getting immersion foot, because we went through a lot of water. Jungle rot, we were looking for that. We were checking for either heat stroke or heat exhaustion, and so it was a constant. And we had to force feed them malaria pills.
They didn't like that?
Nobody liked it. Malaria pills weren't the greatest. And I don't know if they helped or not, but that's neither near nor there. And making sure that the guys were drinking enough water and taking salt.
That would have been important.
Had to do that. So you're always doing something.
In your time in Vietnam, did you ever interact or fight with any ARVN soldiers?
Yeah, there was. I interacted with ARVN soldiers. There was a whole company that were gonna leave for the field, and someone saw this water can that he wanted, and he went and a group of ARVNs went over there, and all of a sudden the can was gone. So being a guy that just didn't care, I just went over and walked through all the Arvins, and I grabbed the can, and I turned around and walked back out, and they're all looking at me like, and I'm figuring, if they really don't want me to go, I can't go. But most of the Arvins that I ran into, I was not pleased.
What was it about it that you weren't pleased?
I remember one in particular, he was going to show us his weapon, and when he pulled his bolt back, nothing happened. And he took his clip out of his rifle, and he was going to try to fix it because he thought that was wrong, and all the bullets just fell out of it. So I mean, and he was one of the better ones, and so they didn't impress us as fighters at all. And there was one time in particular, we were on an operation. And we had a company pinned down. They couldn't move. They were being pinned down by snipers. And we couldn't move. They got this ARVN unit to go in and tried to relieve that company so we could withdraw them. And because we had another company that would take 12 hours to get to them, but they were working their way to help relieve them. And these ARVNs went in there, and they had one wounded, and they backed out. They turned around and left the company, didn't try, with only one wounded. So that kind of left a sore spot in your gut. Mm-hmm. And so we were there for another 6 hours before that company was finally relieved. And when they came in, that company had 14 dead, 27 wounded. And if they could have been relieved earlier, someone would have made it. Mm-hmm. So that they left. No, I didn't like the ARVNs. Okay. The rocks are another thing, yeah. But the Korean Marines were just outstanding.
You know, the person I spoke to yesterday said the exact same thing about the Korean Marines. So
yes.
That's a theme I've been noticing. So when you're in battle as a corpsman, are you wearing anything that identifies you as a medical personnel?
No.
Because you would have been a target?
I have a battlefield caduceus, which was black, that was on my collar.
Okay.
So the Marines could know what was what. But and I was carrying a Unit 1 and a 45. So that was the only weapon that I carried.
Did you think the enemy could identify you as a corpsman at some point?
Oh, yes, easily.
Do you think you were a target?
We were told if the average lifespan of a corpsman in a battle was about 30 seconds. So you were kind of like on borrowed time. Mm-hmm. But everybody can tell you that. I mean, they're looking for officers as well, but they figured a corpsman was worth 11 Marines because a corpsman would be able to take care of the wounded. And if the Marines got wounded and there was no corpsman, someone had to take care of the wounded. Mm-hmm. So that would drop the number of rifles being shot at. Mm-hmm. So,
did you feel, or do you know if at any time in your service during Vietnam were you exposed to Agent Orange?
Yes.
Yeah.
Everybody in I Corps was exposed to Agent Orange. If it wasn't in the water, and several times we were out in the field and then you felt this sticky, planes would go over and then it would be tacky and a little sticky. Yeah, we were all exposed to Agent Orange.
What were you told about it in that time?
Nothing.
Nothing?
It was defoliant.
That's all they told you?
That's it. They were going to, and I've been in areas where it really worked. Mm-hmm. I mean, it looked like the end of the world.
How long does it take for nature to regenerate from that, do you know?
I don't think it has yet, and it's been 50 years.
Yeah. How long did it take you after the war to realize that Agent Orange was a potential health risk for veterans?
I personally wasn't thinking about anything after I came back. I just didn't want to, we wanted to forget about everything. Okay. There was they said, make sure you get your Agent Orange screening, and so we went and got a physical, okay. Agent Orange physical, and we kept abreast from it. But when we did it way back after we came back, they didn't know much about Agent Orange. They were just trying to set up, I guess, get enough people tested so they could come up and find out what's really wrong, and if Agent Orange really did cause this or that.
So you're in Vietnam during a really pivotal year because 68 is when the buildup is, we have our highest amount of troops in Vietnam, but there's also a pretty active anti-war movement going on back home. Is that something you heard about what, what's going on at the home front, the political and social turmoil? And if you did, what were your thoughts?
Well, I didn't care about the turmoil back home, to be honest with you. My thoughts were you got to survive this where you are now, because other words, you wouldn't be going home. At least you wouldn't be walking off the plane. There was a little bit of turmoil I heard when Martin Luther King was killed. And you wear green over there. Everybody's green. There is no race. If it's a race, it's a green race. And all the wounds that I've ever seen in my entire life all bleed red. There is no difference. And so for us and the guys that I was around, there was no anti-anything. We were just, I got your back and you got my back. And together, we're going to get through this.
So while you're in Vietnam, do you have any, did you have any thoughts about the U.S. involvement in general? Were you for the war? Were you against it? Or were you just there to do your job?
We were there to win the war. We were winning the war until our politicians stopped it. There is no doubt in my mind that if they would have let us fight Vietnam like it was a real war earlier, I would not have had to go to Vietnam. It would have been over. Usually when you're fighting another group of people, you try to destroy them. That's what war does. You're supposed to kill the enemy, not make friends with them. And not to bomb the North. That early, 1965, when we started really getting into it, was, in my military experience, really stupid. And pretty much most the guys that I served with feel the same way. They should have been bombing the North. We were fighting the North. The only thoughts we really thought was it was the North versus South. And that's considered a civil war, and we shouldn't have been there in the first place. Yeah. And I truly believe that. We shouldn't have been there in the first place. In fact, I think someplace in our Constitution, somewhere in those long little letters, we aren't supposed to interfere with other countries having a civil war. And so I really, and at least I was taught that at school, we're not supposed to. And I really believe that we shouldn't have been there in the first place. But it was that domino thing that they just know that after Vietnam, communists were going to take over the rest of the world. So, and that didn't happen. So, but that's hindsight.
Oh yeah, hindsight's 20/20. So you participate in 10 major operations when you were, or operations and all these sweeps. When did you start to wind down your time in Vietnam? When was your service ending there? Did you stay there for a full year, so from February
Yes,
to February?
I was there from February to February.
And when did you get your orders to go home?
Well, I actually extended. I got them in early February. You're going to go home, and it was like 2 days, and I had to extend it for 5. They were in the Navy. You have to take a test in order to get a higher rank, and I had extended only. It wasn't very long. It was like 5-10 days, and just so I could take the test in Vietnam, because when they give it, they only give it a certain time, and I'd be en route, wouldn't be able to do it. So I stayed there a little bit longer than a year,
And in your year, did you see or speak to your brother at all, or have any communication with him while he was there?
I did. I was on, in fact, it was the mini-tet in May. We were south of Da Nang in a place called Ganoi, Ganoi Island. It wasn't really an island, but it had 3 rivers going through it. And there were 3 villages in there, and they're all confirmed VC. It's a heavily populated VC area. But when it rained, the rivers would swell and all the water would come off the mountains, and it would be surrounded in water for weeks at a time. And so the Marine Corps was going to stop a mini Tet because they had heard that they were going to hit Da Nang like they did Wei with a large force. And as it turned out, by accident, we ran into that large force. I should back up. I was on a different operation. It was called Batter Valley, and that was to try to find those forces that we ran into with the next operation I was on. It started off as a no-name and became very quickly called Allen Brook. And Allen Brook for I Corps was a major battle. We accidentally ran into a division. And so for days on end, we would be constantly fighting. There would be mortars. I had more wounded and dead than I'd ever want to see.
In Ganoi Island area?
On Ganoi Island.
Okay.
It was on the first day, it was about 120 degrees, extremely hot. And we started getting sniper fire from the bushes, and I can recall we hit the ground, and the fire was so intense you couldn't move. In fact, you were trying to get as low as you could, and you didn't want your head up and down. You wanted it sideways because that would bring you a little bit lower. At least that's what I felt. And when I did that and I turned, I could just see the Marines when they came down. The heat from the ground would come up, and they were just passing out. And that first day, I ended up medevacing. We had 47 dead and 125 wounded, and that was just my first day on the operation, and it was like that. At night, we would have to we would make camp, dig in, and then as soon as it got extremely dark, we would pull up as quiet as possible and move down, and 3 times the old position got mortared. And so they had us spotted really well, and that operation lasted like, if I'm not mistaken, 3 months. And there was a second operation and a third operation in the same area. One was Junction City area, and the other one was Dodge City area, I'm sorry. And the other one was Mameluke Thrust.
Were those all happening at the same time?
Around the same area, okay. Yes. Because Allen Brook lasted, I think, we kicked off early May, and it lasted till July or August. And Mameluke Thrust started in June and lasted till October. Okay. And those were, that's when I was wounded. I was wounded on Allen Brook. We had LVTs, which were landing craft, motor vehicles that would go land or water. And we sent them back because they were too much of a target. So the colonel that was leading the battalion sent them back. Well, they got ambushed. And so we picked up everything we had and we started going to where they were as quick as we could. Well, as it turned out, they were ambushed to ambush us. And as soon as we connected, it rained mortars everywhere. And I was going into a dike for protection because it was middle of the rice paddies. And a mortar went off on the other side. And I caught a piece of shrapnel in my face and got medevaced.
So I was going to ask, what happens when the corpsman gets injured? Do you just keep working if you are able
Yes.
until you get your medevac?
I was wounded. In fact, I think I was unconscious for about 30 seconds or so, not very long. And the impact spun me totally around. And when I realized what was going on, I could see 9 other guys laying in the ground. And someone yelling Corpsman, and it turned out to be my radio man. And he looked at me and he saw the blood and he said, "No, stay right there. And you can't do that. You have to get up and you got to do it." I think if the wound was, it wasn't that bad. It could have been a lot worse than what it was. You didn't feel anything. It was like I got hit with a baseball bat, so you felt the impact, but I didn't feel any pain. So I could move my hands and my feet. So you do what you got to do, and I can remember this. Our lieutenant, he was one of the guys got wounded in the arm, and I put a battle dressing on him, and they started raining mortars in again, and he's kind of in and out of it. So the only thing we could do was my flak jacket, I opened up and I laid over him. And it's a 50-50 chance you're going to get hit. And he was the guy that couldn't take care of himself, so we had to do that. So after the mortars kind of let up, I got him up on his 2 feet, and I said, "Can you move your feet?" And he said, "Yeah," and we started going again, and he wasn't really that pretty good. He wasn't quite with it yet, and we started getting mortars closer again. And so I threw him on the ground and covered him up a second time. And finally we got him to where we were in a relatively safe area, which was just out of range of the mortars unless they moved him. And all the wounded was. And so I kept working with the other one, other wounded members that were there, and another corpsman came up. And I said, "Good, you can help me." And so we worked on them all, got them all patched up. And we had a medevac coming in, and I said, "Yeah, what do I look like?" And he said, "I think you're going to be fine." He said it was close, because what it turned out to be, I had my head down, and the way it was is it hit the top of my eye socket, whereas if I would have gone in like this, it would have gone through the eye, and I probably would have still I wouldn't have got up. That was scary, and so, but I didn't feel scared at that time. I ended up being medevac because he said, "You're wounded. You got to get that crap out of your face." And I said, "Okay." And we had 2 guys that I kept close tabs with when we were flying over. Now the medevac that we were on, it was a CH-46. It's a banana-shaped helicopter that the Marines had, and it's a long one, and you could get more on it. It wasn't like a Huey, and so I kept close tabs on 2 of them, including my lieutenant, and until we got to the hospital, and I treated myself. I looked in the mirror and I said, "Oh shit, I can take care of this," and so I treated myself. Yeah, and the next day, I caught a ride back to my battalion area. And when I got there, they said, "You're supposed to be wounded." I said, I'm okay, I just got to get back. I had to go in. We had a couple other guys. I was wounded, and we had a couple other guys that really needed to be looked after. And so I got to get back out in the field. Because I truly felt that if they would have replaced me with another corpsman out there, it would have been very difficult for me to go back out in the field. It was like falling off a horse. You had to get back on, so I had to get back out there. And they were willing to let me, so I did. I went back out. I was out there another 14 days when they called me on the radio, or they gave us a message. They said, "Your brother's in the hospital." And so they're going to relieve you so you can go. And they did. They relieved me at that time. And I went to the hospital, and he had malaria. He should have been taking his malaria pills. But he had malaria, and kind of severe at first, I guess, because I didn't hear it. He was in there for 2 weeks, and I didn't know it. But he was doing much better, and he heard that I didn't know this at the time, but he told me, he said, or before I saw him, he said, "You know, you had 2 guys from your unit come over and say that you were wounded in the face. We searched this whole hospital, including the morgue, looking for me." And I said, he said, "But you don't have to worry." I wrote home and told him, "You had shrapnel to the face but you're okay. Now, if you're reading a letter that says you got shrapnel to the face, you're figuring his face is gone. And I said, "Oh, thanks, Tom. You are doing me a big favor doing it like this." And that's where I met him. And then later, he had spent. Oh, I have to say this. When he was in Quezon, he went on patrols with the Marines. And one of the Marines got wounded, and he lost his .45. And that's an offense in the military, because he was thinking, he wasn't thinking of his weapon, he was thinking of the wounded, and that's what you're supposed to do. And he said, "I have to go to captain's mast." I said, "What are they going to do to you? They're going to send you to Vietnam?" So, "You're already here. You've already gone through the worst. They can't do anything to you." And he said, "Oh, yeah, that's true." And they docked him a month's pay for losing a weapon. So I thought that was funny. And that's the only time that I saw him while we were there. I wish my brother's gone now, and I wish we never talked about Vietnam together. We never talked about our experiences or how we felt with each other.
Do you wish that you had?
Yeah, I do. Yeah. Now that he's gone, I really, truly wish he did, because he was there at a time when Quezon was getting like 1,900 rockets at a day.
So he was there for the siege.
Yeah, I mean, they didn't call him tunnel rats for nothing over there, and he talked more because he stayed in the Navy. And became a chief. And then when he retired, he talked more with the other chiefs on what he did in Vietnam than what I ever did with them. But I wish we could have had a chance to really just sit down and talk about our experiences.
Yeah. So when do you leave Vietnam in February of '69?
Yes.
And is your brother still in country at that point, or he?
No, he left.
He
got in country 4 days before I did, and he got out of country for about 9 days before I did.
So where, after you leave the country, do they debrief you somewhere else? Like, do you go through the Philippines or Okinawa or something before you come back to the States?
When we were on the flight back, we went to Okinawa, and we were there for 3 days. Wanted to get new uniforms, and I had a choice. Corpsmen have a choice. 8404 Corpsmen have choices. Can you wear the Marine Corps uniform, or can you wear the Navy uniform? Well, when you duck bullets with somebody, you wear their uniform. And it was a Marine Corps uniform only with the Navy emblems on it. And they fitted me nice. I mean, they said, if you need a uniform, come on. And I went into supply, and they did a nice job. And they put everything on the uniform for me, put the ribbons on for me. And when they put it on for the first time, it was a spiffy looking uniform.
And you're not all sweating in the jungle in it, so that's good.
Yeah, yeah, that's true.
So what else would you have done in Okinawa? You got new uniform. What else would you have done?
Oh, partied. We partied hardy. It was kind of funny. There was 5 of us in this group. I was the only corpsman. The other ones were Marines, and we went to the NCO club, and we were just having a ball. And in Okinawa, they have ladies that will dance with you, just for dancing. And we're all having a good time drinking, and we're drinking champagne. And we were shooting at the people on the dance floor with the cork. We were actually shaking the bottle up, and I don't know why we weren't kicked out, but they were really lax there for some reason or other. But when we got back to the barracks in Okinawa, we saw all these suitcases all in this one area, and he said, "Well, that don't look right." And then we saw someone carrying it out. And I don't know how he could do this, because I'm telling you, this man really knew what he was doing. He was extremely quiet, because either that or everybody else was really drunk. And someone finally yelled, "Hey, he's stealing the suitcases," and everybody was up. As soon as he yelled, they were all up, and they caught the guy. And I would say they beat the living daylights right out of him. And then they called the cops, or the MPs, and when they came, he said, "Well, how do you get all these bruises?" When he fell down the stairs, and we're on the ground floor. And he said, "That sounds good," and they threw him in the back, and Okinawa had a bad reputation. You could not even go take a shower without somebody. You had to have a buddy watch your sea bag for you, because someone would come in there and take it. And I don't know why they did that, but or how good these guys were, because coming back from Vietnam, you really learn how to survive, and you can hear really well, and so the slightest thing that's out of place will wake you up. I'll give you an example. While I was still in Vietnam, I was in a hooch at our battalion area in a shore party, and that was really right across the street from Freedom Hill, which was a huge U.S. facility, and it was about 2-3 o'clock in the morning, and I just got up. I got dressed, and I put my pants on, put the boots, started lacing them up, got up, and there was one other corpsman in the hooch with me, and I kicked his rack, and I said, "Get up, we're getting hit." And it's quiet out there, very quiet. And so he didn't question, he got up, and we were both dressed, and outside of every hooch was a hole, dugout, with sandbags and that for protection and such, and we were in there, and we're standing in there. And it was like 30 seconds, and he's looking at me. He said, "Did you just have a bad dream, or what?" Then we heard another rocket go over, and everybody was. And I spent a lot of time, more time than a lot of the Marines did that were actually in the battalion. And I don't know if I heard the first. I think I heard it with my brain, and said, "Get up, you're in trouble." So he's looking at me, and he thought I was going nuts, and he said, "Did you have a bad dream or not?" And when the rockets went over, I said, "We got to get to the aid station, just in case." And they were trying to get to the airport. But
it's like your unconscious brain.
And so when you're like that, and then in Okinawa, I found out, these are guys that a lot of them were in the field. In fact, they never saw the rear; they only saw the front. And for them not to wake up, or this guy was good. He dreaded it. Then they asked for eyewitnesses. And I shut up really quick because I knew it was going to happen. And four guys said, "Yeah, we saw him," and they had to stay in Okinawa till the trial.
Oh, good thing you didn't say anything.
Yeah, I don't know. I did. I said, "Don't." I was telling myself, "Don't say nothing. Don't say nothing."
Where do you go after Okinawa?
Okinawa. Then we went to California, and we landed in California about 4 in the morning.
In which city?
Oh, to this day, I keep questioning it, but it has to be the Marine Air Base or Air Force Base in Los Angeles, because that was the airport that we flew out of. That I remember.
And so when you fly into that airport, were you on a commercial flight?
Yes.
Okay, and so when you get off the plane, was there any like, I don't want to say protesting, but did anyone react to you being...
Actually, no, because we actually landed on a military base.
Okay.
I think it was El Toro. And and they brought us into a hangar. And they said, there's like 250 guys on that were there. Oh, by the way, as soon as I got down, I got down on my knee, I kissed the ground. There it is, we're back home. And so we got there and in this hangar, and they said, "We are going to process you all out. You will be getting on either buses, private cars if they are coming to pick you up, or taxis to take you to the airport by 6 o'clock. because by 7 o'clock the protesters came.
Okay.
And they flat out said that at 7 o'clock there will be protesters here. And so we're going to get you out of here as fast as we can. And they did. By 6 o'clock, everybody was processed, and myself and about 6 other guys crammed into a taxi cab. And the driver was great, and he floored it. He was driving down the highway going about 75, 80 miles an hour, and in smog. You could not. I don't know how he saw. I don't know how he saw beyond the front of the hood. And but we're all looking at each other. We're saying, "We made it through Vietnam. We're going to die on a California highway." But he did. He got us to L.A. airport, and he was super great guy. He dropped. Everybody had different flights from different airlines, and he dropped everybody off, and he told them right where to go, and to get onto the plane. And I got to mine, and my flight didn't take off till about 11 in the morning. And so I'm there at 6:30, no, about closer to 7:30, somewhere in that area. And I go up to the gate where I'm supposed to, and the gentleman looked at me and he said, "Just come back from Vietnam, didn't you?" I said, "Yep, going home." He said, "You're going to be lucky enough to get on the plane." I said, "Okay." I didn't really care. There were bars out there, and I could wait for another flight at the bar with no problem. And there were maybe 35 people on that plane, and I was the last person to get on that plane. He wouldn't let me get on a plane until I was the last one. That was his way of, I guess, letting us know they didn't like us. He also sat me next to an Asian girl. And first class was full. And the Asian girl called the stewardess over and said, "Would you please give me another seat? I don't want to sit here." And at first, I didn't really care. You go wherever you want. It pissed me off later, but not right away. And the stewardess came back and she said, "I'm sorry. If there was room in the first class, I would have sat you in first class." And I thanked her, and she was really nice. And I had an enjoyable flight home. From LA we got to Chicago, and from Chicago we flew to Grand Rapids. I got in Grand Rapids, and my wife, when they came to get me, and she walked right by me. She didn't recognize me. She didn't. I had to say, "Hey, here I am." The bad part I had when I got home, when I left, I had my son was 6 months old when I left, and when I got back, it took about 2 months for him to even let me hold him, because he would, as soon as I went to pick him up, he would start screaming, and that hurt. That was a bad thing, not on his part, but it was just a bad thing. But he did finally relent. That's how I got home.
So when you get home, how much longer did you serve in the Navy?
Till 70. Okay. I was in active duty for 4 years. I got out in April of 70.
So what did you do? What was your job? Like, where did your life kind of take you after that?
Well, when I was still in the Navy, when we got back and we were at Great Lakes, we were going to get. I wasn't sure where I was going to work, and so there was a large group of us that were got there at the same time, and they were putting everybody on different wards to work, and I was the last one in the room to go. And I said, "They must finally found something." And the nurse came up to me and she said, Lieutenant Commander came up and said, "We got this situation on this ward." And I don't know why she picked me. We have a person that's been running the ward for the last 3-4 months, and you outrank him. And I said, yes. What's the problem? She said, well, she's been running the ward and you outrank him. And you have actually, not only did I outrank him, I had more time in service than he did. So, but it was for them, it was a touchy situation. For me, it was not. I get on the ward and I outrank you. So I'm the man in charge. So they put me in charge of the ward. I became a senior corpsman, but they didn't want, I didn't want, nor did they want me just to walk up to the guy and say, hey, I'm the boss now. And so we started, I soft pedaled it a lot and let him do his thing, and I started coming in whenever I knew you should do those things a little differently. And it finally happened when one day they had a guy that was, I was in the upper respiratory ward where we treated pneumonia, mono, and hepatitis. And sometimes I went back, that was 10 North, and sometimes I would work on 9 North, which was isolation. And when the other senior guy came up and said, I'm having a problem with this patient. I said, what's the problem? He said, well, I'm supposed to get a sample out of his stomach. And this guy is big, and he was arrested and he stole a car. And the guy was big, because I'm not the biggest guy in the world, but when you're looking up here like that, he's pretty big. And so I said, okay, let's go get the test. And we took the tube and a glass of water and the sample bottle with me, and I looked at the guy and I said, he looked like he didn't want to take anything from anybody. And I said, we need a sample of from your belly. See this tube? You're going to put it in your nose, and when I tell you to start drinking, you're going to swallow and drink until I tell you to stop. And he just looked at me, and I said, when you start drinking, because when you have tubes there and you breathe through your nose, but if you swallow, it's blocked and the tube will go down your esophagus and into your stomach. And so that's why they drink the water. And so I told him that. I said, do it. Start drinking. And I didn't wait for him to question or nothing. I just took the tube and started putting it down his nose. And he started drinking, and that's good. And I got the sample, and I said, we could do this really slow, and I pulled the tube out. I said, that's the quickest way. And that was it. And after that, they started coming to me with questions about medications. And so that's where I really made the switch. I let them know what was going on, and became in charge of that ward. But that was actually a fun time. I actually allowed the guys to draw blood on me. I had just about every medical test that I could have, because we would send it down and have it tested. And if a guy wasn't sure how to draw it, so I said, well, draw. It's better to practice on it. We used to practice on orange for giving shots. In fact, in course school, we would take a syringe and fill it with vodka. And we would be eating oranges when we're in class. And it wasn't enough. It was enough. It was like maybe one drink out of orange, It was like you were eating oranges, but you're paying attention to the class, and that was fine.
So after you're out of the service, do you stay in healthcare after that? Or did you move into something different?
No, I went to, the only thing I could have done when I got out, with all the experience I had, was orderly.
Okay.
And I'm not going to push bedpans, and that's just about all orderlies did back then. And I'm not sure what they do now, but back then, now they have a really good, corpsmen and medics, for that matter, they get some credit for their experiences while they were in the service.
Like in nursing school or college credit or something?
Right.
Oh, okay.
You could they could get credit for, like, if they wanted to go for registered nurse or things like that. And I thought back in those days that was kind of funny. I sewed people up, did suturing. I did things that nurses don't do, and especially LPNs. I would dill out the pills and make sure they were correct. And usually that's a registered nurse's job. But back in the day, they didn't recognize that as good experience, apparently, or they didn't take it as good experience. So, yeah.
So, did you follow anything in Vietnam after you got back? Specifically, did you have any thoughts about the Paris Peace Accords in -- or the fall of Saigon in '75?
Yeah, I was kind of the fall of Saigon. That made me feel so damn bad that, and it made us look extremely low, in my opinion. That was a dark time. Didn't like it at all.
So after, most of the American public, Vietnam didn't seem to be a thing most people talked about. In the decade or so after the war. When did you start to notice, movies and books and the public starting to kind of wake up to the war?
Just recently.
Yeah.
Because they feel bad of I think they feel bad because of the way we were greeted when we came home. And they blamed the soldier rather than the politicians that put us there in the first place. And soldiers, in my opinion, a soldier is the best patriotic servant, public servant that the people in the United States could ever have. We do what the civilian tell us to do. That the military goes not on the military's way, they do it from a civilian. I know the president is the commander in chief. But the politicians are the ones that put you in a place to where you go to war. And it's not the soldiers. I don't know of any soldier ever that thinks I really want to go to into battle and possibly lose my life. They're willing to do it because that's their job, and they took an oath to do it. And people still don't understand that, I don't think. A lot of people don't understand that. They don't teach Vietnam in high school. If we're lucky, maybe it's a paragraph or two. That way, there was this thing going on. It doesn't say anything about what happened to the soldiers or how many deaths. I think they should be told that in high school. And if they're not, that people feel sorry or I feel sorry is the wrong word. People feel they did wrong, and that's why they're showing so much thankfulness to Vietnam veterans. Back in the day, back in '70, when I was about to get discharged, I personally took a month's leave to find a job. And in Wyoming, Michigan, I bet you I hit 50, 60 factories that had help wanted signs up. And there was a place on most applications you could put veteran. And if you put veteran, you didn't even get an interview. And the only way I got a job, I was going to get unemployment because I couldn't find a job. I was a brother-in-law spoke up for me at one place, and that's the only way I got a job.
Because you knew someone.
Right.
Yeah.
They just didn't trust us. They thought we were going to get angry, go into all kinds of fits, and maybe kill somebody. Movies back then, if there was something bad happening, it was a Vietnam vet that did it. If there was a murder, it was a Vietnam vet. If there was a robbery, it was a drug addict, a Vietnam vet. Everything that was bad was a Vietnam vet. And movies, books, TV. And so, Do I feel bad about it? No, I feel angry about it. But the anger is not now. I know the people are trying to make up for it, but they're going overboard. And when you go overboard for a lot of guys that I know of, it does the opposite.
Does it feel insincere in a way?
Yeah, you can tell a difference between the guys that are very sincere and the people that aren't. One that I ran into one, it was actually my mother's funeral, and we got a bite to eat just before the funeral, and this lady came out of a Burger King, and she stopped the car. She said, I had a Vietnam license plate on my car. She said, "You're a Vietnam vet. Were you in Vietnam?" And I figured, well, this, you know what this is? This is going to be bad. And she said, "Thank you." The only thing, and I told her that she was welcome, and we drove off because we were in a takeout line, and the only thing I could think of was she had a relative that went to Vietnam.
Yeah.
Because those were the only ones that were, back in those days, those were the only ones that were sincere. They thanked you sincerely. The other ones, they didn't thank you. You just expected everything bad, but not the good stuff.
What do you think, how did your service in Vietnam, what do you think is the main thing that impacted you the rest of your life from your service in Vietnam? How did it impact or shape your life after the war, even up to now?
I would say the courage of the men I served with. The strength that I didn't think I had, especially when I was scared. And I think it was, life is precious, very precious. I've seen too much of it snuffed out in an instant. And so that, I think, really impacted me a lot. And unfortunately, another part that impacted me was you aren't going to take anything from anybody. And you just aren't afraid of anything. And you are who you are. I had a boss once say, "I'm not sure how to take you." I said, "Well, it's an open book. I am what I am. If the way you see me is who I am." And I think that actually helped me. Because of Vietnam, that actually helped me. I am this. This is me. And I think more people need to do that.
Okay, I have one more question for you. So, what do you think is the main legacy of the Vietnam War in the United States? Or what lessons should the country have learned from Vietnam? And what did we actually learn from Vietnam?
Yeah, but they didn't. They should have learned but didn't, because we keep meddling in places we don't need to be with countries that don't like us in the first place. So I don't think the United States learned anything. I do wish they would have learned that if you're going to serve your country and be a politician, you should be you should have military service in you first, not just a gift to gab. Because I think if there were more military men in our politics today, they would get more things done, because even though they can disagree, they will work together to try to get as close as to everybody's happiness as possible. And they're not doing that. I hate you, you hate me, and that's all there is to it. And I wish they would have learned that the politicians have to live in Washington. If you're elected in Michigan, let's say, you have to live in Washington, and they have to live in a certain area, so they have to look at each other as neighbors versus just another politician. Because if you looked at it, and it worked very well, they had arguments like they're having now back then. And they had people that hated each other back then. But they worked things out because they lived together and they knew each other other than being a politician. Now it's not. You go back home, the only time you see them is in Congress or in the Senate, and I hate you, you hate me, and I'm not going to do anything for you.
Is there anything else you'd like to add about your time in Vietnam, or anything at all you want to add to this?
Just that most Vietnam veterans, whether they joined the service or they were drafted, served their country with dignity and pride. And if the American people would learn that since then, or actually before, but since then, every person that puts a uniform on is doing it for the country. I don't know of anybody that thinks, I'm going to put this uniform on and possibly get shot at to make a lot of money. Military people don't make a lot of money. So, but other than that, if they wore the uniform, their brother or sister. Yeah. And that's all that counts.
Thank you so much for your time today.
You're welcome.